Good evening and welcome to the Board of Education meeting. Please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So we have a lengthy series of minutes to approve, which is reflective of not only budget season, but also interviewing and deliberating for the board vacancy. And happy to welcome Dr. Hirsch here, his first full regular board meeting. So why don't we do the two special meetings, January 7th and 10th first? I think those are just executive sessions for interviewing. So is there a motion that we approve those minutes?
So moved. Second.
Any corrections? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The January 14, 2019 regular meeting, is there a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
I'm so
Nope.
sorry, can I
Yes,
make one
of
correction?
course.
Under number 4, Mr. Boss noted that it was 11 individuals had submitted an application, so I just wanted it to reflect.
That's true, yeah, there were 11, not 10.
There were 11.
Okay, with that correction, all in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. That was also a special meeting, I believe, relating to the vacancy. So is there a motion to approve those minutes? Or, I'm sorry, that's the DLT, that's the
This is-
DL that's
It was
the
a
district leadership
district
team.
leadership team meeting.
Right.
Yes, I will make a motion to approve those minutes.
I'll second.
Any corrections? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And if, Madam Secretary, if you'd note, I abstain on that one, I was not at that meeting. And the January 28 workshop meeting and well, let's do both of those, right? Because that's the same.
The two public
The
hearings,
two public
right.
hearings.
Two public hearings.
So a motion to approve the January 28 and 29 minutes.
I'll move it.
Second.
Any changes, corrections? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. So I think since our student representatives are looking very edgy, and probably, now you're done with midterms, right?
Yes.
Okay. Why don't we move them up to this point on the agenda, if that's okay? So Mr. Horton is not here this evening, so got extra duty. Who's first?
I'll go first. So for A.W. Cox this month, A.W. Cox and all of the other schools in the school system celebrated the 100th day of school last week. All grade levels are working with the next generation science standards in which they learn about engineering, technology, and force and motion. The inquiry-based lessons help to support critical thinking for all students. The school newspaper is now being written by a representative of each grade level from kindergarten to 4th grade. Students have largely enjoyed taking on this responsibility. The school is focusing on leadership this month, and they have gathered to listen to community leaders, including Chief Hutchinson, Chief Shove, and Dr. Freeman, talk about what leadership means to them. At Guilford Lakes, to celebrate the 100th day of school, students at Lakes did a variety of activities, like trying to build something cool out of exactly 100 Legos. The annual Sweetheart Dance was held on February 1st. This is a great event for fathers and daughters to spend some quality time together, and it was also a great fundraising opportunity for Guilford Lakes. Buddy classes at Lakes continue to meet on a regular basis. The students work together on projects, games, and planning for assemblies. Students continue to earn special days by being kind, caring, and supportive of one another. Some kindergarten classes have chose to have fancy days as their reward. They read Fancy Nancy and learned fancy words like accessory, ooh la la, and more. And since Noah isn't here, I'll be reporting on Adams Middle School. The 8th grade Witness Stones project, celebrating the lives and contributions of enslaved persons who lived in Guilford, was written up in the national magazine Teaching Tolerance. The girls' basketball team completed an undefeated season this year, and this week is Spirit Week at Adams. There is a badminton tournament being held 3 days after school, in which over 70 teams have signed up. And NJHS is running a bad music fundraiser for Sarah at lunches during the week. This means that students have to pay to get the bad music to stop.
All right. This is at Melissa Jones School. On last Friday night, the Jones staff held a family fitness night where there were martial arts, yoga, gymnastics, basketball, circuit training, jump rope, and other forms of exercise stations held around the school. The whole family was invited to participate, and staffs and volunteers ran the stations. And there was a successful ice skating party for families on Martin Luther King Jr. Day when there was no school. And the PTO provided hot chocolate and cookies, and the kids provided the fun. For some students, it was the first time that they were on ice skates, so it was a really good experience for everyone. And Melissa Jones also has a visual arts unit in which fourth graders created their own version of Girl with Balloon. Third graders reviewed positive and negative space while creating mixed media symmetrical representations, incorporating their hands. Second graders finished their unit on Pablo Picasso, and first grade focused on Vincent van Gogh's Starry Night. And in kindergarten, students were able to reinforce their fine motor skills by cutting out rectangles and squares after viewing artworks of Pierre Mondrian. And Tito Kisaku from Wesleyan University will work with our students on a theater arts program this coming Friday, in which the third and fourth grade students will be able to write a play and perform it for the whole school. And there's been a lot happening at Calvin late this month. For Black History Month, classrooms have been examining texts and videos about prominent Americans, such as Martin Luther King Jr., Harriet Tubman, Ruby Bridges, Duke Ellington, and Langston Hughes. Students have discussed the events and identified personal characteristics that have contributed to their place in history. The third and fourth grade classrooms are beginning a science and engineering unit that's closely aligned with the next generation science standards. In third grade, students are investigating the unit called A Slick Solution, Cleaning an Oil Spill. Students will test water quality and the oil-absorbing properties of different materials as they engineer processes for cleaning up oil spills. In fourth grade, students are exploring the unit called A Stick in the Mud, Evaluating a Landscape, in which they will look at the role of the geotechnical engineers and will select safe flood-proof and erosion-proof locations for a new cable bridge. They will work with a model riverbank and study soil properties, examine maps in order to assess the potential for erosion at different places on the river, and they will factor in a villager's preferences. And also, student groups in each class have begun choreographing gymnastics routines set to music, in which they have been working together to create these routines, as well as providing feedback to one another. And they will be performing for students, staff, and parents this week. At the end of January, the LEAT community gathered for a Choose Love celebration of gratitude, and were surprised by a very special guest, Nick Fradiani. And he shared his thoughts on gratitude and many things in his life for which he is thankful. And students and staff enjoyed a few songs with Mr. Abraham, who is LEAT's music teacher, who joined in. And since he and Nick Fradiani are friends and collaborators, and the students sang along to the songs "I'll Wait for You" and "Beautiful Life." A lot happening there. All right.
Okay, from the high school.
Wait, talk about Baldwin. Sorry. At Baldwin Middle School, there were 3 music concerts that occurred recently between all 3 performance groups. All 3 had their winter concerts. Chorus, orchestra, and band performed for parents and friends during evening concerts at Baldwin. And the grade 6 band took part in the band jamboree at Adams Middle School last week. There was a few measures in partnership with the parents, the PTO, and the student council. And they were looking for ways to offer more opportunities for students to participate in activities outside of the traditional school day. And the following events are currently being planned. PTO movie night in late March. Student council supported pre-spring break bash in April, and an end-of-the-year evening carnival in late May. And finally, there are community days that are set to begin at Baldwin Middle School, and they've devoted their early release days to focus on community building, supporting the mission to make a school a positive and supportive place for everyone. And the next community day will be Wednesday, March 27th, where the theme will be Compassion in Action. So now at the high school.
Okay. So winter sports are coming to an end, and most teams will be finding out soon whether they will qualify for state conference or state playoffs. Boys ice hockey has 12 wins, 4 losses, and they recently had a big win over Hand. Girls ice hockey has 8 wins with a great win against Brantford. Boys swimming has 5 wins this season, and they're looking to win their division. Guilford fencing is currently undefeated with a score of 15-0. GHS will be hosting the state wrestling championships on February 15th and 16th. The environmental club water bottles are currently being sold during all lunch waves. The profits for these water bottles are going to further support the club. The idea behind the water bottles is that it will encourage more students to use the new water bottle fillers that were just recently put into the school. The Environmental Club also successfully raised money by selling exam cram packs, which contained things like snacks, spare pencils and erasers, and tissues to help students deal with exam week. Second semester has just begun. Report cards are coming out on February 14th.
Oh, great.
All right. And on the same page, the National Honor Society's carnation sale is ending tomorrow, and carnations will be distributed on Valentine's Day. Black History Month is being celebrated at the high school by using digital signboards. We are presenting quotes and images that promote the biographies of prominent Black leaders. And students will be reading quotes from these historical figures each Friday of this month. And the IB Diploma Program is approaching the end for the first cohort of students. And we have completed the Theory of Knowledge course, which the second cohort of students is just beginning. And we've also finished our independent research essays, the extended essays. And the Meals on Wheels concerts will be held this Wednesday. And the honors recital will be February 27th, and the Voices Showcase will be March 1st. So, that is all.
That's it? You didn't mention anything goes?
Still in rehearsal, yes. We are rehearsing on that.
Rehearsals are underway pretty much every single day, and Tech Saturdays have been meeting successfully. Everyone's making great progress with all of the work that they have to do.
And when is it?
I believe opening night is March
22nd.
22nd.
Yes.
Okay.
And there's 6 performances.
Okay.
In those 2 weekends, the one
Great.
after as well.
Okay. Any questions for any of the student reps? All right, well, I guess you're free to stay and
Thank
watch
you.
the rest of the meeting,
Yep.
or not?
Or not.
Thank you.
Okay. So let's go back to item 4, which is public forum for topics on the board agenda. Is there anybody that wants to say anything relating to the board agenda? Guess not. I did review the expenditures for the month of January. We did talk about it in some detail in the operations committee meeting that preceded this meeting. The only thing I want to just note is that we did make our first payment for the energy performance contracting, and so we're going to start to get some data on how it's working. Mr. Gurnham is going to give us a fuller presentation in 60 days about how it's working, and so I know that there's been some data on the town side that there has been some positive energy drop in energy usage, but we're just going to have to get some more information. But it's going to be we need to just keep in mind, if we're comparing electricity and heat and gas and other utilities, it may not be able to be compared line to line moving forward. So let's just, keep that in mind moving forward. The total expenditures were $711,546.28. That counts salaries. The payments through the non-salary payments was $2,829,882.78. So I would make a motion that we approve those payments as reflected in the financial report.
Second.
Any questions, comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Item 6 on the agenda is communications. Anybody have any that they want to talk about?
It seems we got a few again. We, as a board, voted on Dr. Freeman's proposed budget last week, but we had, up to that point, received a few more communications in support of art at the elementary schools. And also, I think we have got a few emails from parents just wanting to express their appreciation for what happens at Cox.
Right.
We're really wanted to
yes.
express to us their support for what happens at Cox Elementary School and the administration there. So,
That's right.
Well, I got several of those,
yes,
yes.
yeah.
Okay. Dr. Freeman, what would you like to tell us?
I have an exceptionally short report tonight. I am slated to report to you on the budget, but as we have spent approximately 6 full meetings working on the budget recently, I thought that I would just remind the community that the board has in fact approved the budget, so we now have a Board of Education budget. That budget will be presented this Thursday, February 14th, to the Board of Finance at their regular meeting at the Community Center. I wanted to note that on March 5th, there is a public hearing scheduled on that budget. March 7th is the Board of Finance's workshop, and this is not just the school budget anymore. This is the total town budget that is being considered by the Board of Finance, with a second workshop, if necessary, scheduled for March 11th. And then ultimately, we have a tentative referendum date scheduled for April 9th, where the community will come out and vote on both the town and the school budgets. That said, the only other addition I would make is to note that on the administrative side, we very much appreciated the community involvement in the budget process this year. I think more than we have in some other years, we have seen engagement, interest, and to Dr. Balistrasi's point, and then a few notes afterwards that appreciated the deliberations that the board went through in determining your final budget as well. So I just want to remind the community to look for April 9th, and that will conclude my report for the evening. I apologize that it's so short.
That's okay. Don't,
Well, yeah, we have certainly given a little bit of time in the month of
Put in some
January
time on
to,
these
to both
budget.
the budget and
Yes.
the vacancy.
right.
Okay. So item 9 is board agenda. And let me just note on the board agenda also, I've invited our legislators to come to the next meeting. Maybe they'll be able to give us a little better data or information on what's happening with the state budget. So hopefully they can all attend.
And Bill's moving through and where they stand in the
Right.
process as well.
Great. So item 9.1 is an interesting item. That is a personnel item. That is to act on, ratify the resignation for the purpose of retirement of Catherine Walker, the principal at E.C. Adams Middle School, after 20 years.
20 years.
Yeah, she came here from Wilton, as I recall. Is that right, Dr. Keene? And has had a tremendous career. You know, the results speak for themselves in terms of how Adams performs and how hard she and her staff faculty work. So it is, I think, with some sadness, but with a lot of gratitude that we act on that resignation for the purpose of retirement. So is there a motion to accept that retirement?
So moved. Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So that's a big change.
That is an enormous change with Dr. Keene and Mrs. Walker both choosing to make this their last year in Guilford Public Schools. That is a significant change and a history that we will work hard to honor in both cases.
And now the next item says appointment of a co-principal, but you've asked that just be deferred, and we probably look at that at our workshop meeting.
We can take that up at your next meeting this month. Thank you.
Okay. All right, so 9.3 is to look at some bonding issues. And Mr. Sands, can you talk about this? We talked about it some in the Operations Committee meeting, or...
Yes, we talked about it at some length. We're proposing, the administration has proposed that we do a one-year bond for the 2019 projects. The total amount of the bond would be $3,004,498. There are three components to this bond request. The first is the Cox HVAC. That's the heating and cooling system, air handling system at A.W. Cox. And that would be a total cost of $1,269,770. It is contemplated that that would be completed during the summer. Secondly, there would be the Windows project at Jones. This would replace all the original windows in a section of the property. The cost there would be $1,567,854. I believe that can also be completed in one summer. And then there is some money for engineering work on future repair projects, so that we can have an idea of what their cost is going to be and what the real scope, et cetera. And that the architectural and engineering costs are estimated at $166,875, bringing the total to the $3,004,498. And that's what we will propose to the Board of Finance on Thursday.
Should this board
Should
approve it?
we?
Should this board
we
approve it?
Yes.
Right. So that's a motion, I take it, that we.
And I would make a motion that we propose this bond.
Second?
Okay. Any questions, discussion, thoughts? I think the only thing I'd like to note is that, and the Cox HVAC, we talk about this a lot, taking care of the buildings so that we don't have to build any new buildings. This is an example of something that just, if we're going to keep using Cox as a school, and there's no alternative to that right now, that you have to take care of it. And this is still the original HVAC from.
That's correct.
When was that building built? Like 1960, I want to say? Late 50s?
I think
It's in that time frame.
it was right in that.
Yeah.
It's certainly a 60s era
I
building.
know it's older than Baldwin, and Baldwin was 71, so it's original. If you get 50 or 60 years out of an HVAC system, you've done okay. and right? I mean, so it's time to do something there. And the Jones windows really fall under the same thing. These are the windows on the 1971 edition, and so these are
all original windows.
Yeah, from the 1971 edition.
And doors.
Right. And so, it's obviously we're going to keep using Jones also. There are not anywhere close to space. The buildings are all used heavily. Is what I was trying to say. There aren't enough empty classrooms that we could even contemplate closing an elementary school. I know some towns have done that. We're just not close to that right now. So. And then the architecture and engineering work for the future projects is really just so we have a better idea about costs and can move more quickly. So they all make sense, and hopefully the Board of Finance will support them. Any other comments or thoughts, questions? Okay, all in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Thank you.
Dr. Hirsch, meetings don't always go quite this quickly.
Boy, don't get used to it.
Maybe you're a good omen, good for something.
Yeah.
Committee reports. Policy committee, anything
Policy
happening?
Committee, we are meeting in 2 weeks, Monday, the 25th. So we will have more to say at our next meeting.
Okay, Operations Committee, Mr. Sanders?
Well, I mean, we just reviewed the bonding request, and we discussed the fact that we've made the first energy performance contract payment. These are annual payments. We should have an analysis of the energy savings, I believe, in sometime in the next 2 to 3 months. We'll be able to make the comparison and see if we're saving as much as we had hoped. And we're continuing to hold our breath to see what the state is going to do in terms of what percentage of the excess cost grant they will grant us this year, notwithstanding the fact that under the law, they're supposed to give us 100%, but we'd be real happy with 70 right now. And we should hear that at the end of February. So that was basically the gist of it. Oh, and we had a good month on the food service front. Very good month,
Good, okay.
actually.
Okay. Curriculum, Instruction, and Assessment Committee?
We met January 28th and covered a few topics, talked about the art standards, and were given some information about the way that art standards are already being met in some of the other parts of the classroom day, and where they overlap, not just specifically art class. We discussed formative assessment, and I think we all learned a lot about that, which was great. And we did briefly talk about our efforts to have high expectations of all of our students everywhere, and started to talk about some of possible leveling changes at the high school to accommodate those expectations.
Okay. Town committee liaisons, are there any town committees that we need updating on? Okay. And Learn Board of Directors, I think that they had a meeting tomorrow that got canceled, or something got
No, no, no.
canceled. It was a presentation.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
there's a
See,
presentation.
okay,
But
right.
they had their board of directors meeting last Thursday, which I attended. And just a couple of things to note. This is a 2-hour meeting, so they covered quite a bit. They presented a report that I believe was requested from some districts to look at regional bus contracting. This is just the very beginning of a consideration of whether something like this makes sense for the Learn region. Again, it would not be regional busing, but regional bus contracting, with the idea that towns in particular groups might be able to contract with a particular bus company together with some efficiencies. I mean, the stack of materials was literally an inch thick, so I will spend some time going through them. But again, just the beginning of some thoughtful consideration of that. The CABE Deputy Director General Counsel, Patrice McCarthy, was there just reporting on legislation that's under consideration, including, some of you may have heard of kind of the school regionalization has been brought up in the legislature. One can imagine that at least around the Board of Directors at Learn, there's definitely some concern about that, but there's thought that that's going to be a challenging issue. The only other thing I'll mention is that there was actually 2 more things. Sorry. One is there was a presentation by staff at Learn on understanding kindergarten entry issues. So about 3 years ago, there was a real look at the age that kids enter kindergarten, and Connecticut is the only state that has a cutoff of January 1st and is I don't know how to say it, is the latest state, right? All other states have an earlier. cutoff. And I think there's some thought that the Office of Early Education, or some hope that the Office of Early Education will look at this issue again, because what it can mean for kids, particularly in the state of Connecticut, where kids are not required to start school until age 6 or 7, you can sometimes literally have an age gap in a kindergarten class of like 3 years, right? So there's just really thoughts on what's best for kids, what it would mean for preschool if ages changed. Again, an interesting presentation, but it was about what was under consideration 3 years ago and what may be reconsidered. And the last thing, thank you for your patience, the last thing that was just, it was a side comment, it was very interesting given where we are in Guilford on enrollment. And we have seen a number of our neighbor districts dealing with significant decreases in enrollment.
Yes.
And there was a board member who was suggesting that a future conversation at Learn would be helpful because smaller districts seeing a lot of decreasing enrollment may need to start thinking about whether they can continue to offer the high school kind of variety of classes, the program, the comprehensive program that they're offering. And it is just one way, I would suggest in many, that we are so lucky not to even be at that stage at all. You know, we're a little larger district, but we are just not experiencing some of these decreases that some of these other towns are experiencing, and the potential impact that they have to think about. So,
Okay.
interesting meeting,
Yeah,
for
good.
sure.
Well, we really do need to try to make sure that we go to as many of
We
those as
do, we
possible. It's
do,
hard,
and
you know.
it is, and you know, there several of the members, it appears, are quite consistently representing their town, and it would be really good if we could figure out how to make that happen.
Yep. Okay. Anything else, committees-wise? We need to get you on some committees. We'll talk about that.
Call it again.
It's too soon, but no, we'll do that. Okay, so public questions. Anybody? I note that there's a Boy Scout here getting his. I'm sorry. Which badge is it? Citizenship in the Community badge. Well, you chose wisely because usually these are 2-hour meetings, and we're probably going to be done in about a minute. So,
Thanks for coming, though.
yeah, thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved?
My goodness.
Second.
All in favor?
Get used to it.
Yeah,
No.
boy, don't.
Thank you very much.
This is like a new record.
Yeah.